What's up everybody? Welcome back to the garage. In the last video, we finally got the engine pulled out of the car, got it onto the engine stand, and started doing a little bit of disassembly. And at the end of the video, I pointed out a couple of issues that we were going to have to take care of. The first issue that I mentioned that was going to be the top priority was the harmonic balancer right here. I don't have a socket big enough to take this off, and this has to come off to get the timing cover out. That was the big issue that I thought we were going to have to tackle first. And then I also mentioned this issue. This is the bottom pan on the underside of the block. Not the oil pan, but it's a bottom pan that's held on by these bolts here. This is what you have to take off to get access to the crankshaft and the underside of the block, the whole bottom end. I mounted the engine stand to that piece. So I need to reposition these mounts to the top side of the block so that I can actually remove this pan. Now I mentioned in the last video that we weren't going to have to worry about that right away because I needed to get the timing cover off first. That was kind of the bigger priority. But after taking a closer look at the engine, I actually need to remove this pan first before I could take the timing cover off, and here's why. If you look inside here, I don't know how well the camera is going to pick this up, but there are these bolts all through here. These actually hold the timing cover in place from the bottom side, so I actually have to get this pan pulled off first and get a look at the underside of the block before I can go ahead and remove the timing cover. And that works out for me because I don't have use of the car today, so I'm not going to be able to go and pick up that socket that I need until probably tomorrow, which means we're going to have to take care of the bottom side of the engine first, so we're going to go ahead and start working on that. Now another thing that I checked out, did a little bit of research on, was the supercharger. I was looking at this last time and realized that these bolts don't come out all the way. So in order to take apart the supercharger, I would have to pull off the actual pulley. That was going to be an issue because I don't know how to take the pulley off, and I did a little bit of research. It is a lot of work to take this thing off. I got some snap ring pliers and I pulled off the snap ring, realized I'm going to need a gear puller. So I started doing a little bit of research and I realized something. If I actually get in here and just pull these bolts out, I can break loose the supercharger with the pulley on, because this bolt is not threaded in right now, it's loose. So I don't have to necessarily take it out of the way, I just have to loosen it up and pull it out to here. Do that with all the bolts on here and I can pull the whole front part of the supercharger off. And then I'm also going to need, I realized during my research that this is split into 3 sections. So there's a line here which breaks the front part loose. Then there's a separate part. This actually holds the, I guess you'd call them turbines in place, the screws. That holds those in place, and then the screws actually sit in here. So I need to break all these 3 pieces apart, and I think I'll be able to do that without actually taking the pulley off, as long as I just get them loose to here. So we're also going to work on finishing the disassembly of the supercharger. And taking a look at that thing, I need to take a look at a couple of pieces. The superchargers, the bearings that actually hold the screws, do have a tendency to go out over time in some superchargers. So I need to take a look at those and see if they're okay. And then I need to do a bit of research. I tried to find the parts but couldn't. I need to find some gaskets for that supercharger because I believe that it's leaking. So I want to get that fixed. But if I can't get that fixed, then what I'm going to have to do is clean it up really good and use some gasket maker or something like that to put it back together with a good seal, so that I can have a good fresh supercharger to throw back on the engine once we get it disassembled. So this episode, my plan is we're going to film this probably over the course of this whole week. I'm just going to do a whole bunch of work, tearing apart the engine, get that bottom pan off, getting the pulley, the harmonic balancer pulled off. We're going to try to get the heads removed, timing chain, all that, get the whole engine stripped down just to the bare block so we can start going about cleaning that up and getting it ready for the reassembly process. I need to hone the cylinders out, that kind of stuff. The other thing I want to get done is tearing apart the entire supercharger over there. I want to get that torn apart, get that cleaned up, and start getting to a point where you start putting everything back together. And at that point, we can start moving on to some of the other projects we have as well, like getting the exhaust taken care of, getting the sound system totally installed in the car. We've got a lot of work to do. So this video is just going to be focused on tearing down the supercharger, tearing down the engine, and getting to a point where we can start cleaning everything up and getting ready to put things back together to throw back in. Yesterday we spent a lot of time tearing apart the engine block. It is completely disassembled. I've got everything pulled off. It's just the bare block now. So that's good. I want to go over what we found. There's some good news and there's some bad news and there's some I'm not quite sure what news. So first, the good news. The heads are okay. Nothing is damaged on them. The top surface of the block is fine. None of the head gaskets were blown. So that's good news. That means there's no issue there. We can just clean everything up, put the heads back on, no problem. Now for the bad news. When I was taking apart the bottom end of the block, pulling the rods off of the crank, there was coolant on the bearings themselves, and the bearings are definitely worn. See if I can show you here. Let's see. So I don't know how well the camera's going to pick this up, but there's some definite wear, some shiny spots, and some grooves on all of the bearings that came out of the block on the rods, and the crank bearings themselves. They're all messed up entirely, so we need all new bearings. So I'm going to have to do some measuring on the crank to see if I can just throw some stock bearings back in there, and then I'm going to have to, if we can't do that, then we'll have to look into some other issues about maybe machining the crank and getting some undersized bearings, things like that. The next bit of news was this. This is an O-ring that is supposed to be used to seal something, and I don't know where it came from. But I found it right here. It was tucked inside there in the water jacket, just sitting there. So I pulled it out. I don't know where exactly this thing came from inside the engine. Looking at the timing cover, there's similar O-ring right here, and there's one missing right here. But the one that I found doesn't actually fit right there. It's too big. So we're definitely having some coolant issues. I don't know where this ring came from. I don't know if this was supposed to be in there and just blew out because it wasn't the right size or what. We'll have to figure that out. So that's another issue that we're going to have to sort through. So I'm going to have to search through all the parts, see if there's a place where that ring fits in. And then we're going to have to make sure we get all the new rubber seals and everything for the block before we put it back together. And now for the I'm not quite sure news. The engine itself. I've seen engines rebuilt before. I understand the process. I know what's going on. I'm a mechanic. I get it, but I've never actually done it myself. I figured this engine rebuild was going to be no big deal until I pulled it apart and the engine threw me a curveball. I have never seen cylinders like this in my life. I don't know how well the camera picks this up. Let me get a flashlight if I can. I don't think I have a light around here. There we go. Alright. So you can see on the inside of the cylinders there, they don't look normal. And it's because they're not. You can also see there's some clear scratches in there. See if I adjust the block here. The worst of the scratches are right there. Again, don't know how well the camera's going to pick that up. But these cylinders are coated. At first I thought maybe it was like a ceramic coating. That's kind of what it feels like. And I'd never heard of any kind of a coating on the side of the cylinder wall. So I did a bunch of research last night trying to figure out what this was. Because my main concern is I don't know if I can hone these. And that's what's going to need to happen with the scratches and gouges that are in it. They're not deep scratches. Like when I run my finger over it, it's smooth. But if I get my fingernail in there, I can feel it just a little bit. So they need to be honed. But I wasn't sure if I could hone these, and I'm still not 100% sure. What I did find is that it is not a ceramic coating. It's something called Alumisil. It's an aluminum silicon coating that they put inside these. And most of the information I found on the internet about this isn't about these engines. There's a different type of engine that people think is Alumisil coated, but it's actually the whole block is made out of Alumisil. And I think those come out of like Porsches and Ferraris, things like that. But with this one, it is a coating. I was able to figure that out, that this is coated with a thin coating of Alumisil. It's not very thick. What I'm thinking right now from the research that I've done is that I can hone it. Looking at the Mercedes repair manuals for the engine, I believe that I can hone these out to a certain point. There's a tolerance in there for repair. So I should be able to hone them out just a little bit. And then I'm not sure about the coating. As far as what the coating does, it doesn't have anything to do with the supercharger or the performance of the engine. The coating has to do with the longevity of the engine. It makes it more durable, and resistant to wear, but it does also create problems of its own. That's probably a part of the reason why the piston rings gave out, is this coating is known to cause excessive wear on the piston rings. While it keeps the cylinder walls intact for the most part, it wears your rings down. So I think if I just hone it, it'll probably get rid of the coating altogether, and I should still be fine. And if there is still coating left, because I don't know how thick that coating layer is and how much I'm going to have to hone away, if there is still some left, I've seen some stuff online where there's a polishing compound using silicate that I can put in there, put some felt pads on the honing tool, and basically just polish it again, and it should still be usable. But I don't know, I still have to do a bit more research before I feel comfortable actually trying to hone these out. And then if it goes downhill, if it doesn't work, if something happens and the engine's just not usable, then we'll have to get a new bottom end. I think I can pick up a new bottom end for a couple $100, which isn't a big deal. Because I did also do some research. One of the things I was concerned about was the difference between the supercharged version of this engine and the naturally aspirated version of this engine, because in the basic definition, they're pretty much the same thing, except one has a supercharger. But I did figure out that there's a little bit of a difference. The supercharged engine has a longer stroke and a lower compression ratio. So I think I would need the crankshaft as the different piece. So if I just buy a naturally aspirated block, I should be fine, and I can take my parts that are good and put it in there and it'll still work. So if I can't get this engine to work by honing it, cleaning it up with these cylinders, then we'll just have to get a new block. But we'll figure that out when we come to it. So the next step is to go ahead and tear apart the supercharger. Once I get the supercharger torn apart, we can actually start taking all these pieces out of here, take them outside, get the pressure washer out, the degreaser out, the brushes, everything, and clean these parts up as best as I can. Try to scrape all this material off. There's a lot of gasket material all over the block that I need to pull off. So that'll be the next step. So let's go ahead and jump right over to the supercharger and start tearing that down the rest of the way. What's everybody? I just finished tearing apart the supercharger. This video has taken a couple of days. Been pretty much focused on the engine for a while, between the engine and the supercharger. While I was at work just getting stuff done, I spent a lot of time doing research, trying to figure out what kind of options we have with the block. So hopefully I'll have an update coming on that soon as to exactly what's going to happen with the engine block, whether or not we're going to try to save that one, get a different one, whatever. Hopefully I'll have that figured out soon. But let's take a look at the supercharger real quick. So I got the screws taken out, and they look to be in really, really good shape. They're dirty, filthy, just from the crap that came up from the intercooler and everything. Adjust this here. Anybody that knows more about superchargers than I do, I would love to know why this one screw is bigger and has like hollow tubes going through it. This goes all the way through, and then we have a solid screw here. Honestly, I don't know much about superchargers, so I'm kind of curious as to why the two different screws are there, what the point of that is. So it'd be cool to know what that's all about. As far as the supercharger housing, it's all good. There's no scratches, no gouges, no weird things that shouldn't be in there aside from the oil. It is very, very dirty, so it needs to be cleaned up. This front housing, the oil reservoir, there's still quite a bit of oil left in there, so that needs to get cleaned out. And yeah, but overall, everything's in pretty good shape. Most of the gasket seals seem like they're doing all right. So I think the plan for the supercharger is to just reuse all the gaskets that I have because they're all in great shape. But I'm going to use a little bit of like a gasket maker sealer type stuff along with them, just to make sure that it's got that extra good seal on it. So we should be good to go there. We just got to get that cleaned up, put back together. We're going to go ahead and start, I think next video, we're going to start working on cleaning everything. Everything, because we have everything taken apart. The engine's been disassembled, the supercharger's disassembled, everything is out of the car, off the car, ready to get cleaned. So we're going to go ahead and start working on cleaning everything top to bottom. The only thing I'm not going to clean yet is the block, because I'm still not sure if that's the block we're going to be using or not. I've got quite a bit more research to do there to figure out exactly what's going on. But hopefully we'll get that here sorted out. But everything else is going to get cleaned because everything else is good to go. So we're going to get everything cleaned up and looking good. The block, once I figure out which block we're using, the block's going to get painted, the heads are going to get painted, all that stuff's going to get taken care of. I'll probably paint the exhaust headers black. The supercharger is going to get a fresh coat of paint. I still need to find the insulating coating type paint that I can put on the intercooler. I've got the intercooler right here. So that is our brand new intercooler. Well, brand new to me, it's used out of a car with low miles, and I've checked this one out. It looks great. It's going to be perfect. Has no issues, so we just need to get to the point where it's sealed up and insulated enough to not cause any problems with cracking and dumping coolant in there again. So I got to find that coating still. If you guys know of anything that would work for that, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to do some research, try to find something to put on there, and we'll get that intercooler insulated and sealed up. And one issue I did come into today is piston rings came in. I need to call the company I bought this from because I think either they messed up or they just misadvertised or something. I don't know. I've looked all over the internet on a bunch of different websites. And normally you buy piston rings as a set, a whole set of piston rings. So in this case, it would be 6 individual sets, one for each piston. I spent like $63 on this. This is one piston. So I'm definitely not going to spend $63 on each piston just for rings. So I need to call the company and see if they meant to send me just one box and that's the way it is. And if so, I'm going to be returning these and buying the rings elsewhere. And then if they messed up, hopefully we can get the rest of the rings shipped out here, figure out what's going on. But yeah, that's going to be an issue because I definitely need more than just one piston's worth of rings. Other than that, though, I think that's it for this video. We got a lot accomplished. The engine's completely torn down. Supercharger's torn down. Everything is ready to start getting cleaned. So I'm excited about that. So if you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe.